Okay, welcome to World Extermination Radio, Space Marines, the show where we talk about Dune mapping and Dune members and other bullshit that interests me. And today I'm here with Tango.
Hello.
Hey, what's
Thanks
up, Tango?
for having me.
So you are the godfather of Doom Radio.
Yeah, oddly enough, I guess I sort of am. I think there was a form of a Doom Radio show a number of years before I started up what is now Doom Radio, but yeah, in recent years, I guess you could consider me the godfather.
Yeah, you did some interviews with only a few people, but you got the whole thing started, and that was the cool thing because Alfonso and Tarnsman were able to take on after your lead, and they started up the official Doom Radio, and here I am doing this alternative Doom Radio.
That's good. That's great though that there's more than one podcast doing this.
Yeah. How did you feel about doing Doom Radio when you first started it?
I think when I started it, like when I first posted the idea and when I first pitched the idea on Doom World, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into, I guess.
Yeah.
I think what happened is I pitched the idea on Doom World, and Alfonso reached out to me and he was like, hey, I think this is a great idea. Can we talk about it? And I was kind of intimidated. I was a little intimidated by that because I was like, okay, does that mean like we're going to sit on Skype and like chat with each other? I've never done this before. This is kind of weird to me. And I was further intimidated because Alfonso ended up being like a really intelligent, articulate, easy to talk to guy. And I felt like it felt like as soon as I started, I was like, holy shit, this guy's way better at this than I am. I don't know why I'm the one doing this and he's not like at the helm, I guess. But I mean, I think more than the desire to like for me to be doing this sort of show myself, I was just interested in like the community having this resource, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Alfonso definitely. He's very articulate and he's very interesting to listen to. He's one of my favorite people to listen to, especially when he's talking on this new thing that Captain Clever's doing, Evolution of the WAD. And
I've watched a little bit of that.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love listening to him talk about like Doom the way it did and stuff like that. He's very observational, and his choice of words is really nice too.
Yeah, definitely. That's so. I pretty quickly started to feel after I started it, I guess like I didn't like it shouldn't be me doing that. And I think this was this was like 4 years ago maybe. I think that it started. So it's been a while, so I can't speak to it with 100% clarity of memory. But I was very anxious to stop doing it very quickly. I think because I just felt like I wasn't the right person to be doing that. So, generally, I guess I'm glad I did it, but
it's awesome that you did it.
Somebody else had just done it from the start.
Yeah, well, it's awesome that you did it because it helped me kind of get the idea to do this too. And when I first started this, I didn't feel like I could do this at all either. I just kind of like dove into it head first. And with a lot of practice, it's getting a little easier for me. I don't know if the listeners can tell, but it is for me. But
I imagine. I was not that much younger, I guess, but I feel like I was younger and less mature when I did it, and less able to approach it with the mindset that I needed to in order to make it a good product, if that makes sense. So I think it was easier for me then to just like do a shitty job and feel bad about doing a shitty job and then quit, rather than try to improve, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah, I think if I tried to do something like that now, maybe it would pan out a little bit better. But I guess the important thing is that it's still happening, and it's a cool thing to be happening in the community.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah, it's fun to do. So I don't know how much. I know you've done like a couple projects recently, and one of the most recent ones was like Mayan Mishap. That's probably your most recent project.
Yeah.
I don't really remember what your background is in mapping otherwise. Like, could you remind me of like some of the stuff that you've done?
Sure. So I actually don't really play multiplayer Doom that much, and I never really have. But oddly enough, I think I have the highest quantity. Most of my work is for multiplayer centric WOTS. So I've done a map in most of the 32 and 24 series. I started doing that with the very first 32 and 24. And it became something I looked forward to every time 32 and 24 happened. But 32 and 24 is probably my biggest, like quantity-wise, that's probably where I have the most contributions. Otherwise, I made 2 maps for Back to Saturn X. I did the ultimate map in episode 1, Tough Skin River, and then I did, I think it's map 2 in episode 2 of Back to Saturn X. And aside from that, it's just been like a handful of very, very small releases, like speed maps, throughout the last, I don't know, that's probably spread across like the last 10 years or so.
That's pretty cool. What was it like working in Back to Saturn X? I know I'm kind of like, people kind of purport me to be like the enemy of Back to Saturn X, and that's not entirely true. I do like a lot of the people involved with Back to Saturn X, and it seemed like it was probably a really fun project to work on.
Yeah, it was an awesome thing to be involved in. So I think if I'm not mistaken, Back to Saturn X started out maybe as some other project with another like small team. I remember at one point Essel came to me and she said she was working on some cool new project, and like Ditto Head was on the team, and maybe Use 3D. And some other folks. So I think that's how it started. But I think soon after it started to become Back to Saturn X, Essel approached me and asked if I would do something on it. And I had been friends with Essel for probably a few years before Back to Saturn X even started. So we had a good relationship and we talked pretty frequently. So it was, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it made sense that I got to work on Back to Saturn X because I knew Essel well. But I mean, it was definitely a good experience working on Back to Saturn X.
That's cool.
Like getting to work on a team with all of those talented people was really cool. Like it was really nice to feel like I was contributing to something where everyone on the team was like an incredible mapper. So I mean, like Vader was on the team, Mechadon was on the team, Essel was of course on the team, and then like after a while it snowballed to include way more people than it was initially going to, I think. But I definitely liked being part of such a prolific team, I guess. I think I used to care a lot more about like my image, or like seeming like I was in with the cool kids.
Yeah.
So I think when the project started, that would have been a draw for me. But I mean, now looking back to it, I guess it's just cool to have had that experience, to be part of the team that made this really cool set of maps.
Yeah, well, that was my experience too. I remember like shortly after I got into like Doom World and stuff, I started making maps in like the Skulltag community, which I think is like you probably remember that. I'm sure you're a part of that.
Yeah,
right?
I definitely was part of that.
Yeah, so like when I got into making maps and stuff, I got pretty well, it was pretty easy to shine there because most people that mapped in Skulltag were pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So I started working on like speed maps and stuff and deathmatch maps and all kinds of things like that, and it was very enlightening to be noticed. Like when you start making maps and people think your maps are pretty cool, and I know from my experience I wanted to be like part of the cool kids now too, and so that's kind of similar to my experience. It's not it's not so much like that anymore. It seems like the community is pretty well rounded. It seems like everybody's on the same team and like the same page most of the time, and everybody's really nice, and which is good.
Yeah. I think what seems to me to have made a big difference is that everyone, just universally, everyone is much better at mapping now. So I think before, for me, a lot of it was like, I can hang with the cool kids if my stuff is good enough. And now it seems like everyone, there's so many people that are making high quality stuff. Maybe that's not the case. That's my impression from what little I am part of the community now.
Yeah, well, you've made some really awesome stuff. And when I saw like screenshots from Maya and Mishap, I actually haven't even gotten around to playing it, but that's just because I'm so far behind on stuff to play anyway. Like like when I go back to playing Doom, I usually just play like a random megawatt, and I pick like one of the later maps just to like test my skills.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Doom World Megawatt Club was doing New Gothic Movement 2, and I played through that a while ago, but I decided to have a run through that today, and I still can't beat map 2. Armor Blood's a cool guy, but man, he makes some fucking hard maps.
Yeah. I definitely know that feeling. Like, there's a lot of popular stuff out there that I still haven't touched, so I don't blame you for sure.
Yeah, it's just having the time to do it. I'm a busy guy, you know. I hate to say that, but it's true. I do a lot of I work a lot, and then I have like friends and family that I need to hang out with, and I have to maintain my house and all kinds of silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was telling you a little bit about my house. I know you mentioned that I was going to make like this Doom room in my house, which I never actually got around to.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember you posting about you were looking for like a picture-in-picture TV so you could have local co-op.
Yes. Yeah, that was a project that I was working on. The idea, actually, Splatterhouse will tell you about this because I tried to get him into it. But the idea was that I would get a picture, like a TV with picture-in-picture settings, so I could set up like split screen and have 2 different computers go into the input on each one, and then you could play split screen side to side. And I was really excited about that at first because it took me a while to find a TV that would support it because it was popular like in like the early 2000s for a while, and then it just kind of like went off the grid. So it was like hard to find newer TVs that had it. So I had to get like an old TV, and it's this huge like 50-inch TV, but the back is huge. Like all TVs are flat these days, and it just took up a lot of space in my house. And I did eventually get it set up, and I tried to set it up, and I got like these Logitech F310 gamepads for like controllers. And so I tried to set up like this controller setup, so it would be like it would almost be like, you know, when you get like a bunch of friends together to play like Mario Kart on N64.
Yeah.
And you just like sit around on TV with controllers, and it would be fun like that. But it was really hard to get people to adapt to the controller setup that I had. They much like people who were even interested in playing Doom at all were much more interested in playing with a keyboard and mouse. So that was kind of like tricky to get people like interested in something like that. And I don't know, I just had like this dream in my head that seemed like a lot cooler than it really was. so I got so I bought like all this equipment and stuff, and I couldn't get anybody to be interested in playing it. Like my wife doesn't even like playing Doom, so I couldn't even get her into it. And I didn't really have any friends in the neighborhood that were interested in playing either. Besides, like my brother, he played a couple times, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't. It was kind of a pipe dream.
Yeah, that's rough. I think I've had the experience of trying to get friends to play Doom with me. And it's already hard enough to get people to play in the first place, but especially if they don't want to use the controllers you've got.
Yeah. But it's weird. It's. I do like telling people that I play Doom, and most people that I do tell are very interested. Like they like to hear me talk about it, but they don't really actually like install the game and actually start playing. And that's a shame because there's so much stuff to play. Like there's an infinite amount of content, and the game is so much fun. I think I really feel like a lot of people are missing out.
Yeah, I tried really hard when I was younger and hanging out with friends more, and we would play video games together. I tried really hard to get them into Doom and to like get my friends to make levels with me, but after a while I just gave up trying to get people interested, basically, after it not panning out so many times.
Yeah.
But I definitely I feel the same way you do.
Yeah, there's so much. I actually did this Doom presentation for one of my classes. I had a public speaking class in college one time, and I was pretty fortunate because the teacher was really cool, and he said you can pretty much just talk about anything. So just pick a topic, and just do a presentation on it. So I made like this PowerPoint presentation, and I showed like all these screenshots of like new Doom levels and stuff. and I made like comparisons that people would relate to, because like at the time, Call of Duty was really big. So I found like this video footage of like a Call of Duty mod for Doom for Z-Doom, and somebody like actually got like all the frames from like they had like
screen caps from the game.
Screen caps from the game, and like it was a very smooth animation, and it was just like playing Call of Duty in the Doom universe. So it was like, so if you like Call of Duty, you can play Doom, and you can play all these cool levels, and it was pretty exciting. And like a lot of people seem pretty interested, but I didn't actually get to talk to anybody about that further. But I'm hopeful they found out about it. But I mean, Doom is growing anyway. Like if you look at Doom World, there's like a new person registering to Doom World like every hour.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like there's no shortage of like new players.
Yeah, that's true. But I think there are probably also a lot of people leaving at the same time, I would imagine. Or I mean,
it does seem like that.
Maybe not at the same rate, but I guess my impression is there are a lot of people that used to be around frequently that are not today.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It seems like a lot of people are disappearing, and it's a shame. And I mean, I don't know what to do about it besides do my best to keep Doom interesting. But yeah, it's a shame. Do you have any like favorite members that have disappeared? I'm actually struggling to think of one myself, but
there have been. So like when I first started playing Doom, this was back when like Skulltag or before even Skulltag Online, there was Doom Connector.
Yeah.
And that was where I made a lot of like my initial Doom friends. So there are a few folks like from that time that aren't really around anymore, like Zap610. I think he pops in on Doom World every now and then.
Yeah.
But I met him like a really long time ago. Otherwise, I guess I can't think of many either.
Yeah, I can't really think. I mean, I knew some people from Skulltag. Like there were some guys that I knew, like this one guy Hasbo. Like we shared a lot of the same music interests, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, it does seem like people in like multiplayer come and go pretty often.
Yeah. You said so. Do you know when in Skulltag's life cycle you started playing?
That's a good question. I think I got into Doom around. I mean, I've always been into Doom, but I actually got involved with like the community of things around like 2006, 2005, something like that.
Okay.
That's when I was involved with Skulltag, because I found out about it, and I was like obsessed with playing against bots. and then like I got really deep into like Capture the Flag, like playing on like public CTF servers.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty fun. And then I did a little bit of mapping here and there, and yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
And then, like,
I guess you would have been. Well, I'm wondering when Skulltag died. I don't remember what year that was, but I guess we would have been in the Skulltag community at about the same time. But I don't really remember you from that period in time.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I wasn't that involved with it, but I did post here and there, and I started Flame Wars like crazy. People didn't like me, man. Well, people don't like me now, but I don't know. That's just the way things are. But I don't know. I just I don't know. I'm honest. You know, that's the way I think of it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was playing a little bit of Skulltag, and then I think I got involved. I think one of my first mapping endeavors, I got involved with like there was an Instagib community project. So there was a community project to start some kind of map set that was designed for Instagib, and
was that the project that Mechadon was leading?
I think so.
It turned into like 40 maps, or sorry, go ahead.
It might be. I'm actually not sure. I can't remember who was leading it, but I remember just seeing that was a project, and I was like, all right, I'll try this. And so I made a map for that. And then after that, I got involved. There was a period where like I didn't have like internet at my house, so I was like out of internet for like I think like a month or two. I'm not sure why. I think there must have been like a hurricane or something that blew out all the cables or whatever. And so I was at home and I was just kind of like playing around with the editor some more. And I couldn't download any new maps. I could only play what I had like on my hard drive, and I didn't have that much. And one of the things I did have was Gothic death matches. And I wanted to kill monsters, but I didn't. But I wanted to like a fun kind of level to do it in. So one of my first experiments was to put monsters in Gothic death matches. So I opened up Gothic deathmatch and I just crammed it full of monsters, and I actually found it to be really fun because I found that deathmatch layouts have like a tendency to be they're actually like they work just as well in single player as they do in deathmatch because they're like very non-linear, and there's a lot of different ways to go. So if you cram them full of monsters, you can kind of like meander around the monsters in such a way that's like pretty it feels like you have a lot of control. And it's really exciting. So one of my first projects was Motor Nerve, which was a project where I wanted to create a bunch of different deathmatch levels, and then after I was done testing them in deathmatch, just start cramming them full of monsters. And it was pretty cool. I liked it. I liked it at the time, and that actually was the springboard for my relationship with Super Jamie, and then we started UIC Ultra together. And that's what most people know me for.
Right.
But he was interested in Motor Nerve when I first made it, even though like I think some people thought it was like kind of shitty. And I mean, in all fairness, it kind of was because I was just kind of goofing around. But Super Jamie had the same idea. Like he saw it and he thought it was a cool idea because I just wanted to do something fun. So we kind of like worked together on UIC Ultra, and I started working on textures. And part of the idea behind UIC Ultra was that I at the time Tormentor 667 was like pretty popular. Like he was making like the Ultimate Simplicity and like some other projects, and I remember he was getting a lot of flack, and I'm not really sure why, but I remember like some of the arguments were like that if he was only like if only he would stop using brown textures, his maps wouldn't be as good. And I remember that like being like kind of at the time I was like kind of like into it because I know how we were talking about like being one of the cool kids, and I know like there was a lot of people that were in that group of cool kids that were giving him a hard time. So I kind of wanted to be
definitely part of that.
Yeah, I wanted to be involved with that too. So I know there was some threads where I think like when he released Stronghold, I kind of gave him a hard time, and I'm not really sure why. But I think I just kind of like hopped on the bandwagon and thought he was kind of like overly promoting his projects and stuff. And but yeah, because he was like given that criticism that his maps were only good because they used brown textures, I wanted to try an experiment where I would just get a bunch of textures and recolor them to brown and just make a maps out of that. And that's what UIC Ultra turned into. And people love it.
Okay, I guess it works.
Yeah. But
there's
yeah, it was kind of like a silly like thought experiment, but combined with like Super Jamie's like brilliant ideas for like thing placement and traps and stuff like that, it made it a very exciting kind of project.
Did you guys divide the work like that across all the maps?
A little bit. Yeah, I think we started off working on our own maps, like independently, and there was a couple other maps that we started. Like when we did map 2, he got started on the starting room, and then he showed it to me, and then I would add on to it up to like wherever I felt like stopping, and then I would just send it back to him, and then he would finish it, and then that would be the map. And there was several maps that kind of combine our styles in that way. And there's also some other maps that we worked on completely independently too.
How did you like doing that like back and forth collaboration style versus just doing something completely independently?
It was actually a lot of fun because one of the things that made it really fun is that we were both equally as motivated to finish this project. We both had like the same amount of stake in it, so we were both very interested, and we loved the idea of working together, and we loved the idea of the project. So we were both very motivated, and so that made it really exciting, and it was very easy because like I would only work on it a little bit, and like I could probably have finished the map on my own, but I just did it up until a point where I just felt like stopping, like I just wanted to take a break or something, and I would just send it back to him and be like, all right, what do you think about this? and then like maybe he'd add some detail here and there. He'd move some monsters around and things like that. And just between both our minds, we kind of like made the maps how we wanted to make them, and it came out really well. And it was very fun working with him. I was hoping to get that same experience for other people when I started my community project Mutiny. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I've played a little bit of it, and I remember when the development was active.
Yeah, so yeah, that project was I wanted to have other people have that same experience. So the idea behind the project was that everybody who would work on a map, they would have to collaborate with somebody else to some degree. So I didn't want anybody working on one map independently. I wanted two different minds on each map, so that because I know that's like a thing in community projects where it's just kind of like this inconsistent mess where there's like some people who are really good at mapping, and then like in between that there's like maps that are just half-assed.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that happens. And I wanted, so one of the main goals of Mutiny was to like make it pretty consistent in that way, that like people would be checking on each other because there'd be more than one person would have their name on that map.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pretty fun experience.
You mentioned that it was good working on UIC Ultra because you guys had similar levels of motivation, but that does, every time I've been in a situation like what you're describing, usually I think it's probably usually me that fucks it up, but motivation seems to be what becomes the issue when you're trying to collaborate with someone on something.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like maybe like when you work on a project, you want to find somebody who cares about it just as much as you do, and it's not always easy to tell because like sometimes you can find somebody who isn't working on anything, and they're like, yeah, sure, I'll make a map with you, and then you'll like work on a project together, and then for some reason that person just drops off the face of the earth, and it's you don't know what the reason is, but I don't know. It's just that it's weird. It's hard to find somebody who you like really click with. And like work on a project together with. And yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about that. But I think a lot of it has to do with just being honest with each other. If someone like invites you to work on a project with them and you're not that interested in it, just fucking tell them, you know?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to say no though sometimes.
Yeah.
I certainly would agree with you, but I know usually when someone has approached me and asked me if I want to work on something, I'll be like, okay. And then I think this happened to me with like TNT 2 or one of the other TNT projects. I agreed to do a map, and then like after like a year of not wanting to work on it at all, I finally dropped out of the project. Like it took me that long to muster up the courage to say I really don't want to do this.
Well, I've done that many times too. I'll get involved with a community project, and it seems like an awesome idea at the time, and I like the idea of being part of something like that, and then I'll agree to do it, and literally not open up Dune Builder for weeks, and I'm just like hopeful that like that kind of that motivation will just show up somewhere, like maybe there's just like one day I'll just get an idea and I'll work with it, but it doesn't come up, and then like after that many weeks you just feel shitty because you wasted all those people's time.
Yeah, and then that fear of wasting people's time for me turns into trying to hold out a little bit longer, but then still not wanting to do it in the end, and I end up wasting even more of their time.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a shame. But yeah, it does happen. I don't know. I don't know. There's enough stuff. Like I don't really feel as much of a motivation to be mapping as much anymore, just because there's so many people doing it already. It doesn't really like I could stop mapping completely, and there would still be like a pretty steady influx of stuff coming in. There's all kinds of new projects. Like if you check, I mean, if you made a thread on, I've done this before. If you make a thread on WADs and mods on Doom World, within like 24 hours it'll get bumped to page 2. There's just there's so much stuff going on all the time. So
that's interesting you mentioned that. I've never thought of that as I guess I've never considered the volume of community output when I've been making something. I mean, not necessarily that would be your only motivation, but that's just interesting. I've never really thought of that, I guess, before.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, time is like a factor. So I don't have as much time to like sit down and make maps anymore. But I do like to help whenever I can. I like to like help people with textures or play testing and things like that. And I try to give people as much advice as I can, especially through this radio show. When you did Doom Radio for the first time, who did you get to interview? Do you remember?
That's a really great question. I have no idea. I remember it might not have been the very first. I remember Snakes was among the first people. Snakes was one of the first interviews, I think, and I did that solo, just him and myself.
Yeah.
Man, who else was there? Zazer was, I guess, among the first. That might have been the first one. I think I didn't end up doing very many myself. I just found the thread, actually. I looks like I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews, I think, before I completely stopped.
Did you like doing it, or was it kind of like, because I was telling you earlier that I still get like nervous every time I do one of these shows, even though I've done like 30 of them, but it's just, I don't know, it's just something that I'm not sure I'm ever going to get over. It's just hard to do. Yeah,
I think for maybe like the first 1 or 2, maybe I think I was looking forward to it. I was looking forward to it because like getting to talk with someone else about Doom is something I'd like never really been able to do before. So that part of it was exciting. But I think after pretty quickly when I started doing it, I realized that like it felt like it was really easy for me to for me to say stupid shit that I would regret later that was not 100% representative of what I was actually trying to convey.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing was really disheartening. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't feel like I was doing a good enough job at what something like that could have been. So maybe for like the first 2 I enjoyed it, but after that I was probably dreading it for each one.
Yeah. Well, I still get that way because like I don't get a lot of feedback on this. The thing is, when I watch like YouTube videos and stuff on YouTube, like people who do like Let's Plays or do their own videos, they're always like subscribe, follow me, like my video, comment, and like all that kind of stuff, and that drives me crazy. I'm like, you're such a desperate loser, and like I find myself and like I don't. First of all, I loathe ads, and I hate the fact that I have to do this on Twitch because I know people have to see ads before they watch this, and that's so against what I would do. I'd rather leave this underground and do this completely free for everybody else, and not make them have to watch ads. But that just comes up on Twitch because that's how Twitch is. But yeah, I don't want to be like one of those people where I'm just like, please follow me, please like me. Like I don't need all of your attention. But at the same time, I'm not getting any feedback either. So it's just like I don't want to like beg for it. But I do want people to I do want to like hear what people's opinions are. But I know enough that like some people are watching this, and that's good to hear. And I know some people like when I make like those status updates on Doom World, people are liking them. So I know some people are listening to it, which is good to hear. But yeah, I do like doing this because exactly what you said is being able to talk to people about Doom. That's not something that I normally get to do.
Yeah.
Like I even have a Doom tattoo on my arm, and some people do see it sometimes. But the way my tattoo is done, it says the word Doom, but it says it in such a way where the black ink is like the shadow for the letters, but you can't see exactly what it says. Like you have to like kind of look at it from a distance. It's kind of like almost like an optical illusion type thing. And when people see it, they think it's like some kind of tribal thing. So people always ask me about it. And then I tell them that I'm like a huge Doom nerd, and they're just like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, it's hard to find people to talk about Doom with, and it's fun to be able to talk to people about that on something like this, which is kind of like why I wanted to avoid like the kind of like interview setup, because I don't want to be like doing an act, and I also don't want to be interrogating people either, because that's not fun. I just want to have like a fun conversation with people.
Yeah.
About Doom and stuff that goes on in the community and new WODs that we're playing and all kinds of stuff.
Right. I think that actually that sort of thing is maybe what contributed to why I was not enjoying doing Doom Radio. Is that I didn't really, I guess I didn't really know whether I should be interrogating people in the sort of way you're describing, or just like chilling out and having a conversation like this. But I think this is a really great format, I think. And it looks like there are people that are appreciating your efforts.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's nice of you. So, what do you view? I know you're like kind of busy. Last time I talked to you, you said you're living in California now, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do outside of, like, when you're not like being involved with the Doom community? What do you do outside of what do you do outside of Doom?
Sure. Well, that's like 99% of my time now. Is outside of the Doom community. So I guess basically I work. I spend time with my girlfriend, or if I'm not doing one of those two things, I'm probably playing Overwatch. Is usually what I've been playing lately.
Oh, okay.
I think generally my story with Doom in the last like 10 years or so maybe is sort of like that, though. It's like I come back to Doom in phases. So sometimes I have some idea I really want to work on, and I work on a map in like a short burst for maybe like a week or a month or something, and then I just completely leave Doom alone and I go like play other games, or I'm involved in something else.
Yeah.
And this cycle repeats, and I keep occasionally coming back to it. But I guess right now
that's a common thing with Doom. I know that's for a lot of people. I've heard that opinion said before, is that Doom is one of those games that, like, even though you put it down for a while, you always come back to it. And there's not a whole lot. I can't say that there's any other games that are like that for me. Like, there are games that I play, but I usually don't have like an itch to play it again. And Doom is like that for me. Like, even if I'll like I'll spend like a few weeks not playing it, and I'll come back to it and I'll be like, damn, I forgot this game was so amazing.
Yeah, I've had that feeling a number of times. I think for me, it's hard to say that exactly. Like, when we talk about over a long period of time, it's hard for me to say that, because I've been playing Doom for longer than like basically any other game. Like, I've been playing Doom for like more than half of my life.
Yeah.
So nothing else has approached the level of like, I guess, like long-term significance that Doom has for me. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with me. I'll completely not think about it at all for a really long period of time, and then I come back to it and I play a map, or I start mapping, and I'm like, wow, this is fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, what I really love about Doom mapping especially is that you have so much control. Like, you can draw all the shapes just the way you like them, and you can pick the textures and all kinds of stuff. And it's not like I would imagine that like a more modern game is probably way more complex, and you're working with like maybe prefabricated shapes and models and things like that. And with Doom, you really do like put your fingerprint on your map by actually drawing the shapes yourself.
Yeah, it feels like Doom is the sweet spot in terms of what you get in control, what level of flexibility you have versus the level of complexity that it requires to build something.
Yeah.
Because you have so much control, and there's so much you can do. There's so much character you can put into what you make, but you can make something that's pretty great in a really short amount of time. Certainly compared to modern things. So that definitely contributes to making Doom really easy to come back to after long periods of not playing Doom at all.
Yeah. In a few short hours, if you know what you're doing, if you've used the editor enough times, you can make something really amazing in just like 2-3 hours. Like, just by getting started. Like, you might not have like a complete map, but you can work on like a really cool like central area, or like a starting room, and make these really like epic big structures in a very short amount of time. And that's always been really fascinating for me. I've seen like some of your maps before, and I think a lot of people would say they're pretty impressed with your style. You have a really good attention to detail and like texture alignment and stuff like that. How do you do you know like what your design process is? Like would you be able to describe it in a way that people would understand?
I could attempt to. I think it has changed. It changes, I guess, between maps. So usually what the creative process feels like to me in Doom is, let's say I'm working on some map, and I guess more generally, what happens is that I try to. It's like I have to have like X number of failures before I reach one thing that turns into a success. So I'll make like 10 shitty starts, like scraps of a map of what I'm trying to do. And then finally on the 11th one, I'm like, finally, this is what I've been trying to do. Like, this is going to be successful.
Okay.
But it's sometimes, sometimes when I've had success, I start with a speed map. And then later I can turn that speed map into something even better. But I've also found success, like, taking everything really slow and like fleshing out rooms at a time. So I guess if those are the two sides of the spectrum, I've been all over the spectrum.
Okay. So if you released every map you've ever made, you'd probably have like 1,000 times more maps than than what you actually have released.
I mean, I don't have like all of the failures I'm mentioning are obviously not going to be fully complete things, but
right.
I have a lot of like scraps and half finished things laying around.
Yeah, I do too.
So yeah,
I have a folder on my desktop called Map Pile, and it's just like any kind of like attempted idea of something that I want to try, and if it doesn't work out, I just leave it. I just dump it in the Map Pile folder, and like maybe I'll come back to it if I feel like it. But most of the time, it's just kind of like stupid experiments and things like that, trying to see if I can make stuff work. But yeah, I have my mapping experience is a little different. I do occasionally like I'll try a couple different things and pick the one that works. What I've been doing lately that works really well for me is I'll kind of just draw a quick layout on paper. So like with pen and paper, just kind of like draw a few shapes of rooms and try to create like a complete layout. And it's not very detailed or anything. It just kind of has the general dimensions of the rooms and like their kind of basic shapes and like how they connect together. And I'll mark like a couple of the rooms as like this will be like the red key room, and this will be the room with the super shotgun, and this will be the final battle with the cyber demon, something like that. And I'll kind of leave that. I'll do that. I'll draw that on a notepad, and then I'll keep it next to me while I'm mapping, and then I can kind of like use that as a point of reference, because sometimes I get carried away with detail, and I'll be detailing an area, and I'll kind of like forget what the rest of the map is supposed to look like. So I kind of keep that as like a reference point to just kind of keep checking on it and see if I'm like on the right track. And so by doing that, I have something that's kind of like a guide as I'm mapping. And that usually works really well for me. Almost every time I've done that, I've had a very successful map come out of it. Well, a map that I personally thought was really successful.
Yeah.
But
I think so for me, the biggest challenge has always been like, what can I do to make it as hard as possible for myself to give up on whatever I'm working on? And the process that you've just described is maybe the strongest at that I've come across. Because if you draw something, it feels harder for me to abandon something when I've drawn, like, even if it's just high level. If I've drawn a full layout for a map and I have this vision in my head of what it's going to look like, I find in that situation it's much harder to quit early and not finish something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple other things that I've tried that actually work for me too. I've tried 1,000 different like mapping processes to like see which one works for me, because I've tried all kinds of different things. Like I know some people say like they map from the starting room and then work towards the exit. So I've tried things where I've like mapped from the exit room and tried to work towards the start. And I've done other things where like I start from like the middle of the map and branch out outwards, and a whole bunch of different, or like maybe just like design the entire layout first, no texturing, no detail, just create the entire layout, all kinds of different stuff. And a lot of things work for different cases, but what I do find does work for me most often is I'll create the start room, and then immediately after that create the exit room in a completely disconnected spot, and then I'll build everything in between and get to the exit room. And that way you kind of have the full spectrum of the length of the map, and you just have to like just build everything to fill in that space in between. And that works for me sometimes.
It's
music is also super important, because if you're mapping in silence, you're just listening to your own negative thoughts, and that happens to me all the time. I'm just like, this sucks. Yeah. This isn't working. This room sucks. This color combination's garbage. There's no height variation here. This is garbage. And it's just all kinds of like stupid negative thoughts that, even if like if you had somebody look at it, they would tell you you're on the right track, but in your head you just kind of, I don't know, like I've read stuff about that. You have like an inner critic that you have to deal with all the time when you're like writing or creating art or any kind of creative activity. So that's a hard thing to fight. But usually if I do like kind of lay out the map as early as I can before I actually get into like making, like try to make it look like something, like make it detailed or whatever, that helps me the most.
Sometimes, I mean, I generally have the same feeling. Sometimes for me though, that it's tough to lay out something like from a high level perspective. If I have like an environment or an atmosphere that I'm really trying to create, you know, like it feels like you're playing. It feels like you have to hold out for so long until you can get to the part where you can turn what you're making into exactly what your vision is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if I have, usually for me, like I'll have like a song that I'm listening to, and the song motivates me to create like a certain environment. Like however I feel about that song, I want to create something that represents that. And if I approach it in the method that we've been talking about, it feels like it takes forever to get to the point where it feels like the map is shaping up to be what I imagined it could be.
Yeah. So like, I guess like what you're saying is like kind of the challenge is creating this sort of atmosphere that you want.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, it's like you have to wait. Like you don't want to get stuck on the details generally, right? Like you're saying, if you've got a notebook next to you and you're trying to stick to the plan that you've created for yourself, you don't want to get bogged down by all like a bunch of little things. But sometimes the little things are what is necessary to make, you know, like this picture that you've had in your head of a thing.
Yeah.
So if you can't ever like treat yourself to the little things, sometimes I just lose interest because it's like, oh, that's so far in the future. I have to do all this other stuff on the map first before it starts to look like what I've been envisioning.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
That's exactly what I'm experiencing now recently, because I'm working on this project that's kind of it's kind of like a love letter to UIC Ultra. It's one of my new things that I'm working on, and right now I'm like in the process of like assembling the resource pack, and it's so boring. I can't stand it. It's because what I've done to myself is I created like a bunch of patches where what I'm really focusing on is lighting. And in order to do that, I've created a bunch of textures where I have like shadows and stuff baked onto the textures. And what I'm doing is I have like these different textures that are like different gradients into different colors and shadows and all kinds of different angles and stuff like that. So I have this set of textures, and then I'm making I have these patches that I put on it to make the textures look like different things. So I have like cracks that I can just put on the walls, or like a brick pattern, or like metal rivets and all kinds of like little things. So I'm kind of like reusing the same textures over and over again, but I'm doing it the same way that the original IWAs did, the way they kind of like patched the tiny patches together and made like these composites of different textures. And the reason I decided to do it that way is, well, I have an appreciation for efficiency. So I like that I can have like thousands of textures and only use like maybe it's like my resource pack's like maybe 1 megabyte or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm really interested in stuff like that. But at the same time, it just takes forever to actually assemble those textures together. And so I have like this idea. I have these ideas for maps that I want to work on, but the texture pack's not done. And every time I get started on the maps, I have half the textures that I need in order to make it look like what I want it to. And that's what's really slowing me down. But I'm so if I can power through it and actually get my resource pack done, the mapping will be a breeze, and I'm so excited for that. But I don't know.
Yeah,
it's going to be.
I guess it seems like it's always a struggle between. I don't know. I mean, I've had the exact same experiences as what you're describing.
But I have this vision in my head, and I know that when it's done, it's going to be awesome. But just getting to that point where I actually get to do the fun part is so it's just dragging me down so much, and it's been slowing down the process the entire time.
I mean, it sounds like once you get to the part of the mapping, you're like pretty enthusiastic and excited to do it. Is that?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, okay. I got some pretty cool like color combinations I want to try, and it's going to be like a love letter to UIC Ultra, except it's not going to be brown. There is going to be brown in it, but there's going to be like other colors too. So it's going to be like, but it's going to have like that cool like dark rusty contrast that UIC Ultra had. So that's what I'm kind of like excited about. But I can't like get to it yet, and it's just like I every time I've attempted to start mapping on it, but like I get like a little into it, and then I'm just like, God, I don't have the textures I need. I need like a support texture for this, and it's not the right size, and I can't get everything to align, and I don't have the shadows for this upper level that I need to make it look dark up there, and it's so annoying, and it's just if I can really power through it and just like take like maybe like a day or two to like really just streamline and work right through it and just get it all done. It'll be great because then I can actually make the project that I want to. But like just getting to that vision is such a pain in the ass.
It's interesting that I mean it's great that you are like excited about the mapping part because what I found generally is so maybe I'll run into the same sorts of problems you're talking about with the resource, like compiling your resources. It takes forever. It's kind of boring. You just want to get to like the fun part. But then sometimes when I get to the fun part, I end up more scared to work on stuff. And I end up just like not doing anything. Has that ever happened to you? Like
you're scared? I want to make something that's so cool. Are you saying
I'm not sure I can live up to what I'm thinking?
Okay, so you're like not as confident about your abilities? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess that would be a good way to describe it. Or it's like, okay, what if I start mapping and I don't have enough ideas to make this as cool as I want to make it, or I start making something and it's not as good as I want it to be.
Okay, well, I'm telling you right now, there's like 100 people here who are listening to the show who want to slap you over the face because you make some awesome maps. And
thanks, man. But I only see three viewers right now on the Twitch thing, so that's a lot less slaps than you're promising me.
I know I'm not very popular. I'm sorry, but I'm working on it. But I know people are going to want to listen to this because I know there's a lot of people who think you're an awesome mapper. I've seen screenshots you've posted before, and I've played some of your maps. And Mayan Mishap, I've seen screenshots of that, and even though I haven't gotten to play it, it looks awesome.
Thanks. And that's very kind of you.
Yeah, but you do awesome work, and there are plenty of people who are making maps, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all as amazing. And but there are a lot of great mappers too, but it takes experience. It's something that you have to develop over a long period of time. And you've been doing this for quite a while. So a lot of the stuff you do create, even if you do create it today, it would be really, I mean, it would be, I'm sure you do like, your most recent work is pretty amazing. So I would imagine that anything you create today would be just as good.
Thank you. I think, I have been doing this a long time, but I also started when I was really young, and so I felt like for the longest time I would do stuff without being as critical of it as it needed to be. Like it's hard to evaluate what you're doing sometimes is I guess what I'm trying to say. So
well, what also happens as you release more projects is you feel like it almost feels like the stakes are higher, because if people have played stuff in the past that they really liked, you have to you feel like you have to measure up to it. Like you have to do something that's even better than that. So like you kind of put yourself in a position where you can't make something really good and then start releasing crap after that, because people are going to be like, what the fuck? You told me, you showed me that you were an awesome mapper when I played that last project by you, and then you start releasing this crap. What are you doing, man? And then after that, you just want to quit forever.
That's anytime, even if that has not really happened to me, I've seen that sort of thing happen on the forums before, where like someone who's generally really well regarded in the community will release something great, and then they release something else a few months later, and someone's like, oh yeah, this is not as good as your previous work. And that sort of thing, that's like really demotivating for me. It's like,
I would imagine that stings really hard.
Yeah. I mean, on one hand, you should be like, I guess it's a skill to be resilient towards that sorts of criticism, but I just want to be able to make shit. Sometimes it's going to fail. Sometimes it'll work out. But yeah, sometimes it feels like you're making it harder for yourself every time you have a success.
Yeah.
That's what people expect from now on.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. But that's why I want to encourage people to start mapping, because they don't really have to deal with that when they first start. There is a little bit of there. I mean, there certainly is a little bit of that scariness where you're not really sure if anything you make is going to measure up to what anybody thinks is going to be good. But we're pretty fortunate that the Dune World community is pretty nice when it comes to making your own maps. Most people tend to be pretty optimistic when it comes to other people's first efforts. So they're usually pretty nice, and there's a lot of people who are very helpful in the community and stuff too. I try to do that the best I can, is help people out whenever I can. I've gotten recently I've gotten some private messages about playtesting advice and trying their projects before they're done, and I'm always really happy to help them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure that's very helpful for especially people that are just starting out.
Yeah. But outside of Doom, I don't really. I mean, I've got my own real life stuff going on. I mean, I have my house and stuff, and it's weird considering that I've done so much mapping and making textures. I actually haven't done much to decorate my house, which is really weird, because I thought at the time I wanted to buy a house, I thought that would be the main motivation, was actually be able to make the house mine. But I actually haven't done a lot of that at all. Now that I'm looking around,
Why do you think that is? For me,
I don't know.
Sometimes I'll move into a place and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna make this place look so sick, and then I get a few small things. And I'm like, oh, whatever, this is good enough. I don't need to spend any more money.
Well, this is the thing. If you're working on a Doom map and you put blue carpet on this huge room, and you decide in a few short seconds that you want to change it to bricks. If you were to do that in real life, that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm pretty finicky when I'm making my map and trying to find the right colors and everything, and I don't have the money or the time to actually spend on not only just paying for the resources, but actually doing the work to get it done. So when I'm making Doom maps, I can be as silly and finicky as I want and just try all kinds of different things. But
dude, there's you can always control Z.
Exactly. Yeah, you can do that anytime. But if you move one vertex in something in a Doom map, that can cost tens of thousands of dollars in an actual house. So I think that's part of the reason is being kind of scared of fucking something up. And yeah, but I do get to work on my yard and stuff, and that's pretty nice. I get to because that's not too hard. It takes time, but it doesn't cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. And also another part of that is because I have a dog that she's a rescue, and she has all sorts of anxiety. It's crazy. When I leave the house, and my wife and I will leave the house for 10 hours a day to go to work, And the poor dog doesn't like to be home alone, and she hears like loud noises and stuff, she'll freak out. Like, for example, there's just a little less than a month ago, there's 3 bedrooms in my house, and the second bedroom has like a window that my dog can like look out and see like into the backyard. And I guess, I'm not sure what happened, but at some point she went into the second bedroom and the door shut behind her, and I'm not sure what happened. Maybe like her tail hit it or something. And instead of just thinking, oh, I'm stuck here, I'll just wait until John and Julie get home, she freaked the fuck out. And she started clawing at like all the windowsills and all the doors, and now she clawed at the door so much that the door to the second bedroom looks like a sandwich that someone took a bite out of. There's a giant hole in the door, and there's like wood chips everywhere. And it was such an eye-opening experience that like I don't want to like do anything expensive to like to update my house if I can expect that my dog's gonna just destroy it. Yeah, man. I hate being a dog owner. I love dogs, man, but I hate being a dog owner. I'm all about cats, but I mean, some people will say shitty things about cats. I mean, like my dog, she's so nice. I mean, she loves me unconditionally. Like, I know, like, if you have a cat, there's some cats where like you can pet them nine times. Like, you can pet them 9 times, and by the time you pet them the 10th time, that's grounds for them to like claw onto your hand and chew your hand off. And that's just, some cats are just freak out like that. And like my dog, for example, I could slap her across the face and she'll be like, "Man, I know you didn't mean that." I don't do that. Yeah, but like,
dogs do seem, but they're so universally lovely.
Yeah, my dog is just so. She just loves me unconditionally, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's great in some ways, and it sucks in others, because I know I'm like breaking her heart every time I leave her alone. Mm-hmm. That's what I hate about it. But she's a cool dog otherwise. I mean, she's awesome when she's here. Like when I'm here, like I've had friends over, and they like when I tell them the stories about my dog, they don't even believe them, because she's so well behaved when I'm here. But when I leave the house, there's no fucking rules. Yeah, it's a crazy environment for my dog, because we have to work. But that's the case. Do you have any pets? I don't.
No. It seems like it would be a lot of fun for the fun parts, but it sounds. I'm imagining I would feel what you're describing.
Yeah, you kind of lose your independence.
You like the dog, but you don't want to be a dog owner.
Yeah, but it is. I am very happy to live in a house. It's pretty cool, but things do change. I mean, for example, when I first moved into my house, my next door neighbor, like one of the most motivating things for moving into this house, because my next door neighbors were awesome. They're very cool people. Yeah. But my one next door neighbor, I live in like a twin, and on the opposite side of my twin is this couple that were a little bit older than me, and they were very cool, and they had a daughter, and then eventually had a second daughter. And by that time, they decided that their house was a little too small, and they wanted to live in a bigger house because it wasn't big enough to raise the family that they were trying to do. So they put their house up for sale, and after like a few months or so, like maybe like 5 or 6 months, they weren't getting any bites, and so they had trouble selling it. So that instead of selling it, they put it up for rent. And what happened after that is this couple moved in, and it's these 2 women. They're both sisters. And one of them is an elementary school teacher, and she works long hours. And because when you work at a school, you don't just teach the kids and then go home. There's like after school work you have to do. So she works long hours. And her sister is a paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh no!
And she's on disability, and she stays there all the time. And she smokes like 30 cigarettes a day, and she's always on the front porch. And this hasn't happened often, but occasionally she will decide that she's completely sane and not take her medication, and she'll have like these conversations outside by herself. And it's like she's had this one conversation this one time where it was usually when she's talking, it's almost like nonsense. There was this one time she was having like a conversation by herself where she was saying something to the effect, it sounded like she was saying that there's like radio towers that are, she's a total tinfoil hat type of person, there's like these radio towers that are sending signals to other people's heads and telling them what to say. And she's the only one who has control over what she's saying. So she's the only normal one, and everybody else is being brainwashed by these radio towers.
Yeah.
It was a really frightening thing to hear. But she's also like, there's also been times where she's like really like cold towards me and like really rude. And I'm not really sure wwhy. Like there was one time I was just getting into my car and she just flipped me off for no reason. Like she just gave me the finger. I don't even know what it was about. I'm not mad at her. I've never yelled at her or anything, and I've never even had an argument with her. We're usually pretty nice, but she gave me the finger that one time. I'm not sure why.
This was like after not talking to her at all. It was like out of nowhere.
Yeah, I just don't talk to her because she's wild. It's just something to her head. Something's in her head.
Yeah.
But now I have to live next to her, and I have to see her every time I walk into my house, and it's very weird. So there's perks to having a house, but it sucks sometimes too, because you don't choose who you get to live next to. I also have these neighbors at the end of my block, and they put their house up for sale or for rent or something, and I think it got rented out or bought by like a bunch of these like college kids. So they're roughly about my age, but they're really like into cars. Like they have like these like racer vehicles that they soup up all the time. So they like rip the mufflers off of them. So their cars are like super loud and annoying as hell. And they have like this big backyard that they turned into like a parking lot. So like all of their cars just like drive into their backyard, and there's just tire tracks all over their backyard. And they just have like they have like a fire pit in their backyard, and they have parties like every weekend.
Oh, that sounds very obnoxious.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And there was this one time that they had this huge party, and I came home. I think it was like some sort of holiday or something. I was at like a bar with some friends, and I came home, and it was like kind of like it was like 9 or 10 o'clock or something at night.
Mm-hmm.
I left early for some reason. I forget why I had to, but I did. And I was driving home, and there's street parking in front of my house, and I usually park out front of my house because it's easier to get into my house from the front of the house than it is to park in the back. And they were having this party, so like the entire street was lined up with cars. And I had to park like 2 blocks over. I was so pissed off. And what happened was after that, I guess there was other people in the neighborhood that complained about it. So the police, they after like a week or two, they put up a sign that said 2-hour parking only between these hours, and it was like 6 a.m. to like 5 p.m., which is not when the party happened. And so I don't know why but we got letters in the mail after that, and they told us we had to get parking permits for all of our cars, and every house is entitled to 2 parking permits, and we only have 2 cars anyway, but we have to get these parking permits now. And that's how the police responded to these people having a party, is that like now you have to have these parking permits, or otherwise you can only park on the street for 2 hours during these hours that they weren't even having the party anyway. It's ridiculous. Don't trust.
The perfect solution.
Yeah. Yeah. So like that's why it's like, so I don't want to get into like all political type stuff, but I know like there's a lot of people like that like think that there needs to be like more laws to protect things, and do not trust the government to do anything for you because they don't have your best interest in heart.
Yeah.
I'm going on this like wild tangent. I know we're supposed to be talking about Dune.
It's all good.
But it helps that you're very easy to talk to.
Thank you.
So what are you up to next? Would you I mean, I know you only poke around with the Dune world every once in a while. Do you have like ambitious project ideas that you want to work on in the future?
Not super ambitious. I think, like I said, every now and then I come back to Doom, and I feel enough motivation to work on something. So I have like a number of projects that I've started over the past few years that are just like small things, like very limited number of maps, but just they're things that I want to make.
Yeah.
But it's really slow progress because I'm not frequently working on something. And it feels like every time I come back to mapping, I feel like I have to relearn. It's like I have to figure out what makes Doom fun again. Like I struggle with like monster placement and things like that, and it feels like it's a struggle for me every time I come back and try to do something. But I guess more to answer your question, nothing super ambitious, but I do have a few things I'd like to finish eventually. However many more years that would take.
Let's say you had all the time in the world. You had no obligations. You could just work full time on mapping, and you were able to work on a project. What kind of project would you want to work on next, if you could think of one right now?
Well, something I've really wanted to explore, and something I am trying to explore in like these little things I have been doing over the last few years is, what I really like about Doom is that it feels like every monster is like a different chess piece, and like there's so much you can do with gameplay, like given all these chess pieces, basically.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like generally adding more custom monsters with like more unique behavior outside of what's capable in like Dehacked and MBF. It seems like that is relatively unexplored. Like I'd love to see
that's a good
point. Megawad like Scythe 2, but just with like a wider bestiary, you know?
Yeah.
Just like monsters that do unique things that the current cast is not capable of. So like one thing I was playing around with is like a warlock that can like slow you down and then freeze you in place as if like he's making you a target for the other monsters to lob fireballs at. So like I'd be interested to make something that just explores gameplay using more like a wider variety of elements like that.
That's smart, because I've looked at like I've played. There was a time where like I took like a few hours to like just go through the Realm 667 bestiary, and they have a zombie for every weapon you could imagine.
Yeah.
They have boss monsters with like 40 different attacks, and like 80,000 health, and that doesn't seem to cover a lot of things that we really need in mapping.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that most of what I've seen on Realm 667 is basically, like either it's a zombie with a different weapon, or it's like a recolored other monster that just shoots more fireballs, or has like 3 different attacks that all shoot a shit ton of fireballs.
Yeah.
And generally there doesn't seem to be a good supply of monsters that do really unique things that would fill some special role that the current monsters aren't capable of filling.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like there's not a whole lot of like the monsters that we have in Doom, they do cover a lot of the bases. Like we have revenants that have homing attacks, and then there's like mancubi that fire 2 fireballs at once in different directions.
Right.
So like that covers like a pretty like just those 2 monsters alone cover a lot of different things. Those are like some of my favorites to really spice up gameplay. But there's other things that could be explored too. Like there's monsters that like you can make monsters that fire fireballs in bursts, or like maybe a monster that maybe it does something like that. Maybe it could like revive monsters like the Arcvile does, but it doesn't have as much health. So like you could use like a lot of them in one area, or something like that. Like you couldn't put like 1,000 Arcviles in, like, because that would just fuck up your map. But unless you have like a BFG and a lot of invulnerability spears. But like yeah, I mean it would be cool if you could have like you can maybe make like a monster that revives other monsters and is like just as fast but doesn't have as much health. And then like after you like clear out an entire area, you could send in like a teleport ambush that sends in like 30 of them, and they just revive everything really quick. And then you have to deal with that all over again. That's like something that is like you're not really able to do with the standard Doom bestiary. And there's other kinds of things you could do too. Like you could have monsters that fire like really fast fireballs. There's not really any monsters that do that. All the fireballs kind of move at the same speed. So that's a pretty interesting idea to like actually work on a project where it just kind of just kind of fills in some holes in the Doom and in just the way Doom works, the way the gameplay works.
Right. I think there's a lot of, I think there's, like you're saying, a lot of potential to mix things up significantly just with like the features that already exist, like the types of monsters that already exist. So I mean, like the things you're talking about, like varying health, varying fireball speeds, varying like fireball firing patterns and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a lot of other things that maybe we just haven't even thought of that could fit in Doom. Like, I would be really interested in a monster that deals more with like area denial.
Yes.
Like, I have this like custom archvile that I made using like do you know that those like custom archvile recolors? It's like he's like orange and he has the black horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a monster like that, and it's like sort of like the archvile, but he puts like little fire plumes that track where you're walking, and they all explode at the same time, so it creates like an area it's basically an area denial. So yeah, I would love to see more stuff like that. It's just like completely different from any monster we've seen before. That the current monster cast is not capable of doing at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot that could be explored there.
Yeah, the only I haven't played a lot of like Z-Doom map sets, but I know like Tormentor 667, he has a way of like kind of introducing new monsters along with the original Doom monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And I've played a few like different Z-Doom projects that use new monsters, and they usually just throw the new monsters right at you like right away. And they have like these crazy attacks that they're not like anything I've ever seen before, and it's like really weird to get used to because like it feels like you're not even playing Doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely have to make it graceful, I guess. Otherwise, it feels like what you're talking about.
Yeah, it would be cool if we could kind of like work on a project that like is kind of like how Doom 2 is to Doom 1. You would make something that's would be like whatever the sequel would be to Doom 2, where it's just like it's just like a regular Megawad, but you have like this new concept with like new types of levels and things like that, and then you're gradually introducing these new monsters along with them, with the ones that you're already used to fighting, and like maybe one new weapon. But I kind of love I'm pretty attached to the Doom weapons as they are. I really don't like to see new weapon mods.
Super Shotgun feels amazing.
Yeah.
It would feel weird to me to have like something else replace. Or I don't know what else you would add.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to add. I've heard some people say a flamethrower would be kind of cool, but maybe. I don't know, but I'm pretty attached to the regular Doom weapons as they are, so I wouldn't really go very far with that. That's a cool idea for a project, though. For me, I don't know. I think UIC Ultra is kind of like my baby, so I think I would go hard with UIC Ultra. That's kind of like that's something that I'm trying to work on. I think that's like my way of like, I'm kind of like working on that now, and if I were to like finish that, I think that would be like my way of going out with a bang. So
are you? I feel like quite a while ago you posted like a beta of UIC Ultra 2.
Yeah.
But is that still happening? Is that what you're talking? Is that what you're referring to, or?
Not really. It is a little bit. It was going to be UIC Ultra 2, but the feedback I got from it was like it was pretty like neutral to negative. So I think I'm going to steer away from what I went with that particular project. So what I am working on now, I don't know if you've seen screenshots for it recently, but I posted some in like the new Post Your Doom picture thread. Only a few screenshots, but there's something that I'm working on. I was telling you about it earlier, where I'm making these textures where the shadows are baked in and like the color gradients and stuff like that. So that's going to be like UIC. I think that's going to be the official UIC Ultra 2 when that's done. But I had like these really ambitious ideas with the original UIC Ultra 2, and it was kind of like I was going to make this Megawad where like the first episode of it, like the first like 6 levels or so, would be strictly Dune 1 monsters, and then after that it would be I don't know. I had like this like weird approach to everything, and I think I was going over my head. I thought I'd be able to do it, and it would come out really good, but it actually wasn't that great at all. So I'm doing something a little differently, where I'm kind of skipping. What I did with the original UIC Ultra 2 is I made too many rules for myself, and I created a lot of limitations and things, and that kind of got in the way of making fun gameplay. So what I'm going to do is just kind of abandon all gameplay rules and stuff, and just make something that looks cool, that does fun, that is fun to play, and is exciting, and all kinds of stuff like that, and just kind of like make it like a culmination of everything I've learned about making Doom maps.
Yeah.
And kind of approach it that way.
So what sorts of limitations were you putting on yourself when you made the first UIC Ultra?
So what I wanted to do was make a megawad where it was divided up into 5 episodes, and each episode would have 6 levels. And in the first episode that one was like kind of like a throwback to Knee Deep in the Dead. So it was mostly like zombie men and imp spam. And it's pretty much all like chain gun, shotgun gameplay.
Okay.
And it was that I released that first episode, and people were like, "What the fuck? Where are the Revenants? Where are the Mancubi?" And they thought it was really boring. They didn't want to play Knee Deep in the Dead again. So, but I also wanted to. I had some like ambitious ideas where I wanted to make every level play well on single player, cooperative, and deathmatch, and I wanted to integrate Nightmare in a way that was actually fun and fair to play.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty big challenge. And what I actually ended up doing.
That's very ambitious.
Yeah. So what I actually ended up doing is like compromising ultraviolence pretty hard in order to make Nightmare work. Some other things I had in plan was that I would make like 40% of the map made up of like secret areas. So like you could play the map from start to finish, and then like you would probably only kill about like 60% of the monsters, and then like the rest of them would be like in all these like hidden secret areas that are just like these huge areas that mostly use like scraps and stuff that I wasn't going to use elsewhere on the map, but there would just be like some secret entrance to get there. And the main map would be like my best stuff, and then like all the secrets would just kind of be like my scraps that I didn't use, because I had like 1,000 of them. I had a bunch of like scrap maps and stuff, so I just broke them up into pieces and used them elsewhere. And so like that would be, but like what I saw like when I was watching some people's demos of it is that like they found some of the secrets, and then they would like get lost in them, and like they thought they were going the right way, and they didn't know what they were in was in a secret. So like they were just like in this like huge maze and labyrinth, and they weren't like figuring out what was going on. And it, like by the time I like jammed all that stuff into a single map, like I ran out of like power-ups and rewards and new weapons to give to the player. So like there was just like random monsters here and there, and they'd like collect ammo, and like they just had no idea where they were going. But the idea was that it would be like really fun in co-op, because like people would be going through and like killing monsters, and then one guy would be able to find a secret and just find this whole crazy other way that he can go and clear the map himself. But not a whole lot of people played it in co-op, so I don't know. And it probably made more sense to focus on single player first before anything else.
I've always felt that's been sort of a shame that it seems like there's so much more single player happening in Doom than multiplayer. So it's like, usually it feels like, why would I bother trying to optimize something for co-op?
Yeah. I do take co-op pretty seriously, because even if I remember when I made UIC Ultra 2, UIC Ultra 1, I did integrate co-op settings into it, and at the time I was pretty big into Skull Tag, so I would host survival servers on it, and that was really fun. But I know like when I check like servers and stuff for multiplayer now, almost everyone who is playing co-op has all these other like WADs attached to it. So like you get like complex Doom with like new monsters and everything just jammed into it, or like new weapons or new skins and all kinds of like crazy additions to it, and so you're not actually like playing the original setup for the original WAD. You're just playing it with all these like modifications like stacked on top of it, and that just makes it like this whole crazy thing that's supposed to be exciting, but I feel is like compromising to the original integrity of the maps.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah. So, I know when I was doing UIC Ultra 2, there were some people who thought it was kind of easy, so I told them to try it on SoloNet, which is to turn on the co-op settings, and then they could play the same maps with double the monsters and double the ammo and more excitement, and they liked it, so that was pretty cool. So I do like to integrate co-op settings into my maps to make them like more meaty and I guess like more monster dense, if that's what people are into. So the first episode was like kind of like my love letter to Knee Deep in the Dead, and then like in the second episode would be like more traditional UIC Ultra, and then like the third episode I wanted to do something where I used as few monsters as possible and as few resources as possible, but make the most challenging types of map, like so like stuff like Malcolm Saylor's Chord G, or like Plutonia, for example, like does stuff like that.
Right.
So that would be like the third episode, and then the fourth episode would be like, I don't know. I think the fourth and the fifth episode were like kind of blurred together, but they would just be like this massive slaughter thing. But I wasn't even like prepared to make slaughter maps at the time. I'm not even sure if I'm prepared to do it now, but because I don't really have a whole lot of experience with it. But so it was like kind of like way over my head. I wanted to do something like pretty crazy and ambitious, and it just created a lot of rules, and I kind of like wanted to push myself to do things I wasn't even prepared to do, and that was kind of, I don't know, it kind of steered it into like a weird direction, and it wasn't like what people expected from playing UIC Ultra 1.
Yeah. So have you given up on that completely?
Sort of. There's a lot of elements to it that I'm going to be reusing, but like I'm going to be like reusing a lot of like design elements, because like I knew I wanted to, like around the time I started it, Dune the Way It Did was like starting to get pretty popular, and I really liked the way that Dune the Way It Did taught me that you can use like abstract shapes and stuff to create like a very unique environment. And I also like the way that the IWADs, the way the levels are designed, they're not very, it's not very indicative of what the purpose is to each room. They're just kind of like these ambiguous tech-based type buildings.
Yeah.
And I actually really like that. So I'm kind of taking that approach with UIC Ultra 2, is that I'm making these buildings where it's not very obvious what the purpose of the building is. You just know it's here, and it's just supposed to be an environment to kill monsters in. So so I'm kind of going with that approach the same way I did with the original UIC Ultra 2.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll be awesome once I actually get around to making the texture pack.
Well, yeah, that I'm sure it will be great whenever you do get around to that.
Yeah, it's just a lot of legwork, and by the time that's all done, it'll be pretty cool. All right, so do you wanna wrap this up, or is there any things you want to talk about before we like actually sign off of this?
I don't think so. I think we covered all the major things. Talked about Doom Radio. Talked about mapping. Talked about your neighbors.
Yeah, my crazy neighbor. All right, Tango. It was really good to talk to you, man. I really appreciate you doing this, and I really enjoyed talking to you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure. And it's a great thing that you're doing this for the sake of the community, and I think it's great that you're bringing on so many people and doing this so frequently, and giving people like myself a platform. So that's really cool. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for being on. And I'm sure everybody else will really enjoy listening to you talk too. I don't know who I'm talking to next. I have some shows lined up next. I think I'll be talking to Dark Nation next week, Ooh. to continue my my series of talking to the exiled people of Dune World. I got some other cool people I'm going to be talking to this month for this season. General Rainbow Bacon's down. So he's a cool guy. So thank you everybody for listening. Keep killing monsters and making maps and giving us more monsters to kill. And keep doing what you're doing, Space Marines. All right. Have a good night.